this episode, we are full on spoilers for both the novel and the film.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen.
I'm Leigh-A.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to What the Adaptation, the YouTube show that reviews adaptations from one format to another. This week, we're going outside our normal wheelhouse of fantasy and science fiction, and we are doing a classic of English literature. We are discussing Pride and Prejudice for the next few weeks. As you see, I've got Roof Mistress Leigh here to join us. There was no way we were going to talk about this book and these movies without her. I like to stay alive, so I want to keep her happy and have her on. Leigh-A, how you doing? I know you love this book.
Great. I am so excited. So this is like one of the things that I had to do post JordanCon. Is like, okay, just need to get through JordanCon, and then we get to do Pride and Prejudice. So
that's awesome.
So excited. Yeah.
Glad you've been looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it myself. Jen, how you doing tonight?
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Being the Leigh is always a treat, and talking about Pride and Prejudice is something that, like you said, it's out of our wheelhouse. So I'm in my brain, I'm used to doing like science fantasy, Wheel of Time stuff. So it's kind of good to shift gears. So hi, Wadahalikasi, nice to see you. So I'm really
Ben,
excited
how you doing?
to do this. Yeah, I'm ready.
So yeah. Well, this week we are discussing the 1940 version of Pride and Prejudice, starring Greer Garson and a young Laurence Olivier. I don't recall the director's name. Somebody could look the director up for me real quick. I had that written down, but then I lost where I put that. It's been a long time since I watched a black and white movie, I'll be honest. It's been a really long time, and I sat to this movie.
Robert Z. Leonard. Sorry.
Robert Z. Leonard. Thank you. I knew it was something Z something.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Z. Leonard directed this. So, what do you guys think of this movie? We'll start off there. What do you think of the movie in general?
I like. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely up there. It's so over the top. Like, it's such a period drama. Like, it's like the 1800s on like acid. Like, it was so it was like wild with the hairdos and like the costumes and whatever. I'll get into later like who I like is my favorite, is the favorite performance of who did which character, but it's very, very almost mostly true to the books. Like it's very close. I would say.
It's pretty close. Yeah, it is pretty close in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Although,
ish.
Interestingly, it's not an actual adaptation of the book. It's technically an adaptation, a film adaptation of a dramatization, which basically means stage play of the book. So I found that was weird, and it was co-written by Aldous Huxley of all the people. That surprised me. I didn't know that. That's a name that So
I was surprised by the names that I recognized that were in it. I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to know anybody. And then actually paid attention because, old school movies, they had all the credits rolling at the beginning. And I was like, wait, they're in that? Yeah. Oh, I recognize that name. I was like, oh my gosh, holy cow. So there's a lot of excellent actors and people who are just megastar, like either were or became megastars in Hollywood around the that time. So
I really enjoyed it compared to what I thought I was going to.
There you go.
I liked it more. This is actually, like I was telling Leigh-A earlier, this is the first time that a filmic version of Pride and Prejudice actually got me to laugh.
Oh, now, Mr. Collins.
The first time I read the book, I didn't think it was that funny. But when I reread it a couple of weeks ago, and then yesterday and today, well, the last 3 days, I found a number of points where I laughed. Mostly
me too.
Stuff Mr. Bennet says and the stuff Elizabeth Bennet says. Because she's got her dad's sense of humor.
She does.
And her dad has a really dry, biting sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. You really have to understand, because we're not used to reading the way that they talked and wrote back in Jane Austen's days. So it does take a little bit of a mental shift And then also Jane Austen writes things very subtly. So unless like she's not throwing the humor right up in your face. So, but the way like you have to read the subtext of what she's writing. So knowing that in the books, her father says like, yeah, we probably should have drowned them. Like we probably should have got rid of them at the beginning. and he's just being sorry. He's trying to rib his wife. And unless you're like, wait, what the fuck? You want to drown your daughters? It's like, no, he's
right?
trying to make his wife angry, and he's waiting, and he's trying to make Lizzie laugh. That's what he's trying to do.
And I'd probably enjoy making her angry too, because aside from a couple other characters, she's just the worst.
Yeah,
she's like she's the worst person in this book and in this movie. There's somebody I dislike more, but
to be yeah.
There's somebody I dislike more than her, namely Mr. Collins. He just unctuous is the word that comes. The word unctuous, just in every version I've seen of him, he's just he's a lick spill, and it just
Yeah, it's great. It's like, which one of the daughters? Oh, this one's not available. Okay, now I'm really interested in the second daughter. Like, no, don't worry about it. It's totally fine.
And he's absolutely madly in love. The violence of his love.
Yeah,
it's a term that
horrible
that I didn't like hearing. I don't like that line. The violence of my love.
Talk about the audacity of telling a woman like, oh, you're probably just telling me no to make me love you more. So I'm just going to wait and keep asking you until you say yes. Like, what the?
No means no, bro. That's all you need to know. No means no.
And the fact that in that day, Jane Austen is like, yeah, this is the shit that happens. Just
yeah.
So calling sketchy dudes out. Back in her day.
Boiled potatoes.
Boiled potatoes. What are some changes that stood out to you from the source material? And did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Or did it just not matter at all?
I think in the books, Charlotte, Miss Lucas, was definitely seemed more of a pivotal role, like especially in the beginning of the book. I think this movie kind of phased out Charlotte Lucas's character like a little bit more than like what the books and other films have done. Like when you come away from the end of the movie, like you're not really worried about her subtext plot. Yeah, it is creepy. That's Dagger. But so the change away from that, I mean, I can understand how they did it because time, because I think I saw something about the movie time is only 117 minutes, which actually, I guess is okay. I mean, it wasn't Gone with the Wind or anything. But they just kind of phased. That wasn't as much of a thing in this movie. That was one of the biggest changes because the books made a really big deal about everything going on with Mrs. Lucas. So I would say that's from the source material. I would probably say, they just kind of cut that out. She's kind of a retreating character, and I wasn't impressed by the actress's performance that much. That's probably one of my. They're all wonderful actors, but like that was probably the one that was like. But anyway,
the acting in the 40s, and this is what I kept having to remind myself is like the style of movies in the 40s was very different, and it wasn't like today where you can make a movie tailored to people who like that movie styles or a book style. So when they released Pride and Prejudice recently, it's been for the people who are going to watch Pride and Prejudice, and probably nobody else is going to watch that. In those days, if you wanted to make a movie, you were trying to make money off of it. So I do feel like a lot of the changes that they made were to make it more accessible to a larger audience. So the dance at Netherfield they made it like a carnival day, which was interesting. It was fascinating. And then also because of the sets, because again, like they just didn't have the types of sets and availability to build all these things. Everything was much more handmade back then. They didn't have the technology that we have today to like churn out sets. They probably were reusing sets from something else. They did condense the locations a lot. So like a lot of the stuff, you know, like there was the 1 or 2 rooms in the Lizzie's house. So when there's like 1 or 2 rooms in Netherfield. So there's like, you know, again, like just very, very limited sets. So which condensed the story a lot.
And it
didn't condense the story, just they had to push things into scenes that went out of order a little bit.
Sequence that was taken out of the story. And it's one of the biggest locations, one of the more important locations, and I think some of the scenes were some of the most important scenes in their story, and that's Pemberley. She never goes traveling with her aunt and uncle in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
She never visits Pemberley, never runs into him there, and that, I don't know, to me, the 3 times I've read that, that feels to me where everything started to really turn around, you know, on their relationship. I thought it was kind of pivotal to their story. So I was
they were able to narrate. Yeah, you don't meet Georgiana. They were able to narrate through a lot of what happens in Pemberley. Also, I think that, again, I think it was a choice because trying to show how Grandoise Pemberley was, like, would have been very difficult in the 1940s because they only had sets from the inside, and they really, like, unless they, like, I don't know how they, you know, maybe just got like a couple of videos of a fancy castle from England, but like that was difficult to do back in those days. Like that was not an easy thing. And this is right at the beginning of World War II. So like they were not going to be able to go over to England to get any videos of castles in England because England was already under siege by Germany at this time. So like there were just physical things that they would not have been able to do.
I also noticed that in the movie, Mr. Collins is not a parson. He's just he's a layperson. He's not a minister or pastor or whatever. I don't know what
they made him like a secretary or something like that.
Librarian.
Yes.
Oh my God. That, you know, that character is just so terrible, but the actor was dang good in the role. You know,
he was the Collins I have least hated.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad. Because you're supposed to hate him. Right. So like the fact that he was the one that I least hate, it was like, okay, like you're not the worst. Like you're still bad, but you're not the worst. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I think it's actually a bad thing. Like I think I am supposed to hate him more. I don't know. What does everybody in chat think?
We'll find out.
Let us know if you think Collins being not the worst.
I don't know if I'd want that role or you know, if I, you know, it's an interesting role to play, and I've seen some great performances in it, but it just playing a creepo like that just wouldn't sit well with me. You know, he's just I can't.
It's definitely a choice actors have to make, but sometimes that flexes your acting skills that you know, like you're not always playing the hero. Excuse me 1 second, that went down the wrong way.
I've always said that I want to see Tom Hanks play a hardcore nasty villain. You know, if Tom Hanks, if Tom Hanks can pull off a hardcore nasty villain, I'll have more respect for him as an actor. But so far, you know, he's played roles to me that seem like a piece of cake or like a shoe-in for the Oscar.
What did he play in? Was it Ollie that he played latest? It was like a Netflix movie. He was like the grumpy old man across the street. But then there was a redemption arc. So
yeah. Oh, also, since we're speaking of changes, I want to say that Lady Catherine, like the ending is a little bit changed.
Yes, I like that little twist. I enjoyed it. Because I was hating her just as much as I was hating Mr. Collins. And it's just like, you have a good point bringing that up. I was going to bring that up too.
But that condensed, I was able to. Yeah,
2 would have been too many.
Yeah, there's only one really primary one in the books. Like there are two, but there's the bitchy one and the one that like nobody cares about. So
a Mary, poor Mary.
I wonder which one we've got there.
Yeah,
in her Robbie the Robot dress.
Oh, I hate that dress so much.
Yeah,
I was not going to talk about the costumes yet because I know we've got a whole section for costumes.
Right. Yeah.
But that was probably the most it's not really a change from the books, but it's not historically accurate by any means. And I really do feel like they're like, hey, Gone with the Wind just had all these leftover dresses from like secondary and tertiary characters. Let's just use all of them. Like, oh my God, they're so bad.
It does happen in movies. I mean,
Civil War era is not the same thing as pre-Victorian England. So anyways,
so
I will not get on that.
Any other changes you guys want to bring up? Or do you want to move to scenes?
Yeah, maybe go to scenes because that'll be the changes. Okay. Because there were I felt like this was the one that deviated most from the book. But again, as we discussed, it's an adaptation of an adaptation. And also the time period. So not a bad thing. It wasn't bad. It was not bad.
What would be a scene that you enjoyed? I couldn't narrow it down to like a favorite scene for me. There's one brief, shorter scene, even though it's still the entire archery scene. You know, from the moment he starts trying to mansplain how to use a bow and arrow to the time the scene ends, it's just I think that might be it's at least my tied for my favorite scene. What I loved is the director's work with the scene, the assembly ball, the assembly dance or whatever, that first dance when the guys come to the dance and everybody starts meeting everybody. There's this moment when Wickham and Lydia, the interaction between Wickham, Lydia, and Elizabeth, beginning of the ball, before Bingley and company arrive. And it's just like, Wickham wants to meet you, Lizzie. He thinks you're a beautiful creature or something like that. And just the way, the blocking and her behavior, and Lydia had me giggling like crazy watching that scene.
So funny.
Where he gets totally distracted from dancing. She just gets this frustrated look on her face, grabs his hand and pulls him right back into the dance. And I'm just like, it was killing me. It was just that was where I started laughing in this movie. Was at that first ball. So those are mine. How about you, Jen?
I will say, go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
I will probably say I like how the fact that she was trying to run away from Mr. Collins at the second ball, that whole thing where she was like trying to do the little secretive smiles or whatever, when she was like evading Mr. Collins. Like that was pretty cool. Like that entire thing was a little bit cute for me, and it was different because you don't have those scenes as much in other adaptations and other films. So it was kind of cool, like having her doing like the whole shots of her like going through. How they did that was very, very cute, and I thought it was very sweet.
Style of film and comedy in the 1940s completely lent to that. Like that was a very popular thing. Like the woman running away from the man, and like you were hiding.
Yeah.
I don't like
Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah. Oh yes. Gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't even consider that.
Exactly.
I grew up with that being shown on TV all the time up until I don't even know when I last saw Pepe Le Pew.
It was the 2000s. It was like the mid to late 2000s when they're like, this is probably not appropriate.
That's
and now
Mr.
he doesn't
Collins right there.
Yeah.
That's totally Mr. Collins.
Yeah. So it was probably one that I liked a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think we've hit on all mine. Like I do enjoy the archery scene. I didn't. Jen, I'm so glad you said the running away, because I'm like, should I say that? And then we talked about the whole Lady DeVoe conversation that she had with Darcy after she grilled Lizzie, and the whole turnaround. And it was just for the 40s and for Jane Austen. I think the reason women especially, but people identify with Pride and Prejudice much, it's because it is the most socially progressive one. So you do have this very strong woman, like you do have like a lot of these larger themes. And even this movie being in the 40s, they leaned really hard into like the badass strong women vibes of what Jane Austen was writing. And that's what I was very fascinated with. And especially with the, you know, Lizzie running away, Lizzie like allowing Darcy to mansplain. So like that, there's a reason those are, I think, are all of our favorite scenes is because they're just like, yeah, go screw yourself, dude.
The only thing with the only drawback to the archery scene is I kind of knew exactly what was going to happen the moment they picked up the bow. You know, and the moment she is handed the bow, I'm like, he's going to try and she's going to be better at it because she probably grew up shooting bows and arrows.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little predictable, but it was still great. Yeah. She could probably absolutely too.
You know what?
Put a flintlock in her hand.
Tropes are not necessarily bad. So like repeated themes, like those are not necessarily bad things because they hit every single time. So you just have to do it well enough to execute it in a way that is not boring. And they did it. Like she didn't even like make a face. She's just like, okay. And just like boop.
That was
and kicks his ass.
And I love how he took it, as she pointed out, he took it so well. You know, he took his little lesson there well, which even today I don't think most guys would have taken that lesson well.
No, I've seen things like that happen. Not that exact particular instance of archery, but I have seen.
Right, the guys who don't take it, they don't deserve to take it well.
No.
Yeah, I've had that with shotguns. So like again, not archery, but like something very similar. Right. Guys, some guys don't like that I shoot better than them. So
I guess that could be a problem for some guys, but I don't understand.
I don't get it either.
What? Any other scenes we want to bring up, or should we move on to the big category of costumes and everything else?
Oh!
I will say the other scene, like it was just a cute way that they did it was when Jane was sick and Bingley was behind the not the curtain, but the folding
the screen, the folding screen.
Yeah, the screen. Thank you. And he just like kept popping up. Like he was so excited to be in the room, and he was so excited Jane was there.
Yeah.
And it was just like, again, the 1940s like pseudo slapstick comedy was very prevalent in that, and I just like couldn't help but laughing out loud. And he's like keeps popping up, and he's got this like stupid grin on his face about how excited he is. I love that.
I'm so glad you called it pseudo slapstick because that's what I was thinking too. You know, it kind of is. It's not slapstick, but there's a lot of physical comedy. You know, like at the end, even something as simple as Mr. Collins stepping over falling over a chair and everything in the dressing room at the end of the, in the movie, you know, when he comes in from outside, just the way he did that was like, it was done comedically. I think a lot of physical comedy, subtle physical comedy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it shows that the director really understood the humor of the books because it is a very like it can be deep and very sad at times, tragic at times. There's a lot of humor in this book,
and he pulled it off with a lot of blocking. A lot of the blocking is what did it.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to the production side of things. Normally we talk about cinematography and special effects and stuff like that. Not really much there to talk about in that aspect.
1940,
I think we've all got problems with costumes. So let me just start off by saying I hate the bonnets. I really, really.
They're like the really tall ones. Like they're almost huge.
That one that had the stripes, the horizontal stripes, made my eyes hurt. I was just like, oh, get that off the screen. That's just
The faces look like baby Cabbage Patch dolls, like in it, like the big huge bonnet, and the faces were so tiny. And like it was very odd the way they did that. Yeah, like okay, it's gonna be huge, like knocking into things. Yeah, my thing with the costumes is it was already. I don't remember. It was Glenn, maybe you or Leah who said it. It was just hit the nail on the head. It was Gone with the Wind. I think maybe it was you, Leah,
Right.
tertiary and secondary characters. I mean, every single screenshot of that movie looks like if you had no idea, and like you colorized it and then dropped a frame. You could just pick any random frame and put it into Gone with the Wind. It would look like it would match. Like it looks like
they're very antebellum Southern Belle style dresses. So again, and I kept telling myself it's the 1940s. They didn't really care about having accurate costuming. Like they were probably more on what can we get cheap and what already exists, especially because it wasn't a small cast. Like there was a lot of people in it.
Oh yeah.
And actually I have been watching some documentaries recently about filming in that era, and they did recycle a lot because so much manpower went into it. They didn't have the technology that we had these days. If something would be reused, the studios would, and it was not about the accuracy. It was about, we just want to make a movie that people are going to pay to go watch. And you've got Laurence Olivier, so like it's, Greer, you've got Laurence, you've got Greer, you've got like several big name peoples in this. So like this movie is going to be watched because of the names that were in it. So like they probably needed like cut corners in other ways.
Yeah, and you put up a very good point earlier that kind of sobered me right at the jump at the top of the conversation, which was, the war was kind of going on. They couldn't go to actual on-set on pieces, like they couldn't do that, so they had to go indoors. And it's a very sobering thought. It's very true. And it kind of puts you into a different vibe, especially when you're realizing that a lot of the people that do costume design had to like hand sew like a lot of each and every single dress. It would be kind of difficult to do, and they were trying to. And the thing is you're making the point that they just want people wanted to go see familiar faces that would make them smile and laugh on screen. And that was why it was the golden age of film right around that time, because people went because they wanted to escape very badly the things that they were hearing in other parts of their life. So it was escapism at its finest. So
the cats might freak out. I just got a kitten and they're like eyeing each other right now, so if there's a loud noise, I'm sorry.
We just got a kitten.
It happens.
I just got a kitten today.
It happens. We're live. Live is carefree and loose. Things happen.
I know. I'm just like slowly, and I just moved all my wine, and I'm just like, all right, I don't know what's about to happen.
I already had a spill today, so hopefully my
shaking.
Yeah.
That's why my computer was shaking, because the cat was like leaning up against it, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know what's up. Anyways,
there was a couple of things that movies nowadays have lots of, or at least movies most of my life they still have lots of, that they did in this movie that I never expected. One I should have expected. First of all, the one that I really did not expect is they had a chase scene in Pride and Prejudice. Chase scene. And I'm like, what? That's modern movies. What's a chase scene doing in Pride and Prejudice? It just seemed out of place. And then the other habit that Hollywood, and I say Hollywood is an umbrella for all filmmaking in the English speaking world. Hollywood has a habit of taking a pretty actress, giving her a bad costume, glasses, and bad hair, and passing her off as the ugly kid. And they did that with Mary. And she's just a little over the top, and especially with some of the acting choices she made when she was supposed to sparkle or glitter or something. I couldn't even try to impersonate what she did. But
she did this like really big, weird really smile. And the mom's like, not that much, not that much.
And twisting her head and like blinking super tons, like
glitter
a little less, girl, but I just it smacked of such a modern day thing that movies do, you know, and seeing it in here. But yeah, my big comment on costuming and production is it's got some fucking ugly dresses.
Oh yeah,
especially this. This just bugs me. Why I put it behind me is because I didn't want to post up a bunch of put Google Slides and throw up a bunch of pictures throughout the episodes, and I wanted to show this ugly ass dress.
Go with me here. Doesn't it look like she is in a maid outfit, but it got full of bees, and she's trying to hide the fact that she was being stung by bees in the top of her dress? Her dress is swarming with bees.
She looks like.
It looks
like an experiment of Agonor. It looks like her arms are coming out of her chest, like Robbie the Robot. So she doesn't have breasts; she has arms for breasts, and that's what that dress looks like.
Well, and the first time you see the dress is when Jane is sick, and at first I was like, "Oh, she's a nurse, obviously."
Oh yeah.
And then she starts talking, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's the sister."
She looks like Staff. Yeah, she does.
She did, because she was standing right there, like with her hands like that, right next to the doctor. I was like, "Oh, she's totally a nurse, obviously."
Yep.
See,
nope, not
long before I ever read Pride and Prejudice, I had watched the Keira Knightley one, and that's because I like an excuse to watch pretty women in pretty dresses. I'm a sucker for costume dramas, period pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, I think before I ever saw that, I had actually watched a sequel to Pride and Prejudice, Death at Pemberley.
Oh,
it's a sequel, movie sequel. I don't know if it's based on a book that somebody had written, based on or not. But there's a movie called Death at Pemberley.
I did read. It was a published book. It's called Mr. and Mrs. Darcy Come Home or something like that, and it was basically like 5-10 years in the future, and they had one child, and I don't even remember what happened in it, but there have been several.
I have also read a published book about afterward, but to me the only thing that could be categorized is smut, just absolute pure smut. So I thought I was getting another I forget what the name of the book is, but boy, howdy, like I feel uncomfortable even talking about the stuff that even on this radio they discuss about it. It's pretty much making Lizzie pregnant. I mean, that was pretty much it. That was, I think, the plot of the book, but I forget what it was called. Anyway, I didn't read all of it because I'm like, okay. It got really weird. I think they tried to do
not what I was expecting.
No.
I think they tried to do. I think where I went off the track is where something was where like Darcy was poor or had to go away or something, and she had to get in touch with his French side of his family because Darcy is a D''ARCY is actually the English derivative of a French name.
Darcy, yeah.
Yeah, so that happened. I was like, okay. And then they tried to do a redemption arc for Wickham in the same book. And I'm like, where Wickham and him were half brothers. And that's the reason why. That was the reason why the father wanted to give so much to Wickham at first when Darcy's father died, is because actually he was like a bastard son. So him and Darcy are half. And I'm like, nope, I can't do that. So I think they were going with that twist of the book, is that Wickham is somehow actually related to Darcy, and it was a family secret. And I'm like,
no, I don't like that.
I don't either. So that's why I stopped reading the book.
Darcy respected Wickham's father so much and only held on for so long until he started doing fuckery with Georgina and yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
and it was like losing a brother, like having a brother betray you. Like that is the level of hate that Darcy has for Wickham. Yeah. It's like you literally betrayed your actual family. Like you were a brother. You were raised as my brother. How dare you?
Yeah.
The movie, I was wrong. It's not a movie. It was a 3-part miniseries, I think, on the BBC or something like that. It's called A Death Comes to Pemberley.
I do feel like there is a book that's called Death Comes to Pemberley.
Who is the anybody watch Doctor Who?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember who played Clara. I can't think of the actress's name. Clara Oswald played Victoria. She was one of the stars of this 3-part
Oh, yeah, I don't know her name.
I'm blanking on her name. Totally blanking on her name. Somebody in chat will put it up, and I'll see it 10 minutes later. All right, so.
Yes, so there was a novel. It's a British television drama based on the best-selling 2011 P.D. James novel of the same title.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah. So you guys want to move on to actors?
Yeah,
sure.
All right, who wants to start? Who wants to kick off?
I'll let somebody else kick off of that. I'm still trying to look for this silly book that I was you're talking about. Sorry, I'm listening, but I'm here.
None of the actors really stood out as outstanding performances. And again, it was the 1940s. It's a very different acting style than what we're used to.
Right.
I will say I was fascinated by Laurence Olivier's performance of it, because I do think of all the Darcys that are in the adaptations, the TV shows, the movies, he was the one that did show more emotions towards Lizzie earlier on. So he wasn't quite so stalwart. Like he was, like it became very obvious that he very early on that he did find Lizzie attractive, even though he made that rude comment at the dance, like immediately afterwards, he's like, "Oh, do you want to dance?" And then was hurt by it. So like that was a fascinating choice. So it was just that performance. And I liked the fact that Greer was a less petulant Lizzie than some of the other actresses. Like she was definitely a little bit more refined. Like had, again, from the book, all the same witty retorts, but pulled it off in a different way, I think, than some of the other actresses. And I'm kind of almost holding my judgment on the actors and the overall movie, because it's been a while since I've watched the other adaptations.
The others. And
I really want to go and compare them again a little bit. So because it's just a different interpretation of the same characters.
Yeah.
But I do think that these were probably two of the more unique takes on the two main characters.
For me, I gotta say, all right, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. You haven't gone second yet, so I'll let you go.
Olivier really stood out. I also didn't realize that young Laurence Olivier was that ridiculously good looking.
Oh yeah,
just like stupidly good looking. I'm just like, wow, even I'd be interested in saying, hey there.
Yeah.
You know, but
he's very handsome.
Greer Garson, though, at the moment, she's my favorite Elizabeth Bennet. You know, like you, Leigh, it's been a while since I've seen the other ones. I'm looking forward to rewatching them, but right now she's my favorite Lizzie. I love the way she delivers the wit and, you know, the humor and just the biting comments that she throws out. I think it was sometimes a thing of beauty, the way she would insult somebody without being rude. She gets it from her dad. She very much has her father's humor in this movie. And I don't remember if it's that way in the others.
It is. A lot of those lines are pulled directly from the book, so that does exist. Like I said, I think it's how Greer executes it is very different than some of the other actresses who have played Lizzie. And again, it's been a while, so I'm like kind of like reeling back that judgment and that assessment until we go on to the next sets of this series.
I also really like Maureen O'Sullivan as Jane. I thought she was really good as Jane. And she totally gives Olivier a run for her money on how good looking she is. They called her, it said she has the perfect profile. She has a fantastic profile.
Yeah.
When she turns her face, I'm just like, well, yeah, that is a perfect profile. It's just like, yeah, she's a stunning woman. But she was really cool as Jane. I liked her as Jane.
I will say probably the background characters are what makes this film more interesting, than the other ones for me. I think I've already mentioned Collins before, but even more than that, just like Kitty and they were like Yes. And the two little
Kitty
sisters,
was-
Kitty and Mary
Kitty and
just being stupid. Like
Kitty
sometimes
and Lydia being stupid.
yeah. Well,
All
yeah,
three of
yeah, all of them, but oh yeah, Mary's not she's the most like dour. Isn't that the
But
good
she
word
was
for Mary?
also just like, yeah, she was like, when she was in the store and she just wasn't paying attention to her, she's like pointing a book, and the mom's like, "Come on, we gotta go."
So in every adaptation, the sisters are a huge humor point for me, but Collins also was too. So Collins could run the gamut of how his character is, depending on who plays him and how the director wants it, as being a super like dickhead, not very nice, unfriendly guy, to just like a kind of like a oblivious guy, or like a funny guy, and this guy leaned into the funny part of Collins, and I think that was a pretty good interpretation. Hi, Ashton Crow. Ashton Crow is asking if we've discussed the screenplay written by Huxley yet. I know you mentioned him, Glenn.
We did mention it up at top, or a little bit ago, actually.
Yeah.
Howdy, Ashton Crow. Thanks for joining the chat. So, anything on? Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Where were you at, Jen?
That's it. That was the I would just probably say the sisters, Kitty and Lydia. Sorry, that's right. And then probably
I think they're my favorite Kitty and Lydia's. I think that might stand. I think that might stand as a like permanent, because they were just so silly and drunk and just completely audacious, and that's exactly how they are in the books. And
I think I read somewhere that they were actually taking shots at like live on screen. They were drinking.
Oh my god! Well, I mean, it was the 40s. Everybody was drunk all the time back then.
Actually drinking. So what you saw was them half drunk and having a good time.
Right.
So I think that's a really fun thing that you don't see anymore, and that'll be a moment lost to time.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah, for sure. They're because
they
gotta take multiple takes, so it's like, you know, grape juice or whatever instead of wine. Or as I pour, this is actual wine. I promise this is not stage wine. I'm pulling a Lydia and Kitty.
Yeah.
Don't cough. I thought that was funny when they took the shots and they were coughing. I was like, wow.
I started laughing.
I haven't seen somebody do that in a long time.
I'm not shooting it. Also, I know better to listen when a soldier tells me to take a shot of something. I'm like, oh, really? Why?
Yeah. Now, I have to agree with Jen. I do think that Melville Cooper, who played Mr. Collins, was pretty good in the role. He did that role just, I mean,
I also
it made me feel icky watching him. So, who the dad? Oh, the dad.
The dad.
He was great.
Hilarious.
He was good. He was really good.
I don't think he had a single line that wasn't a joke in some way.
True.
Seriously.
Well, again,
every line he had in this movie.
That is the father, but the way he delivers them is, I'll have to say, because I do love the Donald Sutherland version of the dad. So we'll definitely need to do a wrap up and be like, which one of them is our favorites? Because
definitely.
I thought I knew who my favorites were, and now I'm questioning all my life choices. So,
and you know, we're doing a number of versions of Pride and Prejudice in the next few weeks, but there are dozens of versions of Pride and Prejudice that we are not covering this year. We are not going to be attacking. We're only doing this one. Those who at home I haven't seen yet our list yet. We're doing the BBC show from 1995, 3 nights of that. And then we're going to be doing the 2005 with Keira Knightley. And then we're going to have AP Canavan on to help us wrap up by talking two episodes of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So we're going to move our way back into the fantasy science fiction genre eventually here. So those are going to be fun. I haven't read those yet or watched it yet. I'm going in fresh pretty soon here. So you ladies ready to move into themes?
Yeah.
All right. I'll let Leigh-A, you start off.
Well, so there's the obvious themes of marriage, but I think this one really leaned into the independent woman one a little bit more, because you didn't like it really was focused a lot on Lizzie, whereas some of the other adaptations do have a lot more of the story. Like you get a more understanding of Wickham's background. So this really was very primarily focused on Lizzie. And again, the creative 1940s ways of showing, like, she's running away from Collins, she's shooting those bows and arrows, and then again the just the dialogue that is pulled directly from the books, that, you know, Jane Austen being a strong independent woman in and of herself, that I think this is the one adaptation where they're actually able to really add on to it. In addition to Greer's performance and the way she did it, it wasn't, sometimes the other actresses make her come off a little bit more bratty. Greer did not do that. She was this very well put together, not well educated woman, but like she knew her mind and she was confident in herself. So I appreciated that.
My first and second themes were number 1, Pride, and second, Prejudice. I think that was a very big overarching film.
That was kind of low-hanging fruit there, Miss Kate.
Wow, that took a lot of thought, didn't it? That took a lot of thought.
Anyway, okay, so I've been waiting to drop that, guys. I'm so silly. I'm like, I can't wait to see this. I hope when you said, and Glenn, when you said Leigh-A go first, I'm like, shit, she's gonna say it.
It didn't even occur to me, and I'm kind of mad at myself right now.
I apologize. I'm so sorry.
I'm so mad that I didn't think to do that.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I guess the thing would be the big theme. I don't know how to put it in a word, so I'll just kind of say it like not ratting out someone. That's a huge theme, like, because Darcy could have put a stop to all of this if he had made Wickham's character known at like the onset. Obviously Lizzie kept her. It's got to be hard because we're going to be talking about the same thing about the same book through other things, so I don't want to spoil it too much. So because it's pretty much going to be right on par, hopefully, through all the same films, but just lack of communication, like so Lizzie hides the fact that she had actually started liking Darcy from her sister, right? When Jane straight up asks her, she's like, oh no, everything's blah blah blah. Bennett, Bingley, he didn't, like, he just kept, remember, he completely suppressed how, like, well, no, he didn't suppress, Jane, how she felt toward Bingley. Like, she kind of didn't say anything until the fact that Darcy was able to convince Bingley that no, she's not interested in you. So, I mean, there was so much non-communication, like, going around between everybody, keeping everything a secret and everybody's past. Georgiana's past of Wickham was completely censored off. I mean, but you had to do that for the time period because she was such a young girl at the time and everything like that. So, yeah, so just, I guess, lack of communication from all the parties. Like, if things were being brought to light at the very beginning, you wouldn't have this misunderstanding, which caused the prejudices and that sort of thing. So I guess that would be the biggest theme, I would say.
The pride and the prejudice that prevents
the pride and the prejudice. I'm sorry. I had to. Pride
prevents communication, which causes prejudice. Yes.
I had to.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I tried to be that I was real with it, but I thought it was
it's
funny.
good. It's good. Sorry. Yeah, the love is a theme there, you know, that's just kind of part and parcel with, you know, the story. The one that stood out to me the most here is first impressions not always the truth of a person. How else to put that? I don't know, but, you know, that is like the whole lesson of this movie, this book. Her first impressions gave her the wrong impression.
Yeah.
You know, and she hated on him for a while. So
That's
it's
true.
just that one stands out to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot about, these are kind of tied together, the honor and dishonor, aka reputation. You know, a woman's honor, a young girl's honor, you know, that stems from, and this is the other one that goes with it, sexism, chauvinism in society and the law at the time, and still to this day in a lot of places and in a lot of ways. But I'm not going to try to go into politics, but there's also socioeconomic class struggle going on here.
Yes.
You know, between, you know, the Bennett family, who are gentry, you know, they're upper middle class, you know, talking to upper class like Darcy and Bingley, you know, and the upper crust, like, you know, Lady de Boer. She's a de Boer.
That's cute.
But I normally don't like her, but this movie I liked her just because of that ending.
This movie made you like her. Yes,
I
at the end. At the end.
For de Boer. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the themes that really stuck out to me, you know, but that big one of impressions, first impressions, not always being, you know, what's really true about somebody. Or as Olga says, important to be earnest. So, anybody else have any notes or anything else that they wanted to bring up on this?
I was surprised at the lack of any sort of background music. There was music
it's
during
almost all diegetic.
Yeah. But, and again, it's just thinking back that, you know, this is 1940, so getting an orchestra together was very expensive and recording was difficult. And then the concept of creating music, which you could tailor a movie to, like, that was a very difficult concept back in those days. I don't even know when that transition where it became more popular to have consistent audio to movies started happening. Obviously, it was not 1940, but
no.
I know that's normally one of you guys' questions, and so like it did strike me. I think the chase scene was one of the big orchestral moments. So
Bill has a good point there.
Yes, and lots of pop and crackle of silence. Absolutely. Yeah. You could hear the fizzle.
Awesome.
Yep.
I like that.
So, all right. So I guess all we have left to do is rate this movie. We will be rating the movies, and we will be rating the miniseries.
Am I allowed to, once I watch the other movies, readjust mine, or is this like just my independent rating of the movie on its own?
You'll have to come back and leave it in the comments.
Okay.
Which you can do that. You can come in and leave a comment. I'll pin it. If you leave a comment changing your rating, I'll even pin it.
Okay.
Okay. So I have to admit before we start this, my supreme bias for the Keira Knightley version. I mean, it is a supreme bias. So watching any other version is very hard because of how much that movie meant to me, and got me to read the book and then subsequently everything else. Because I saw that first and I was like, oh my god, I like forced Chris to watch this with me, and he actually liked it. He's like, I don't watch that. I'm like, no, this is good. And he's like, it is really good. He might like it more than I do. So taking all that into effect, because not because it's bad, but because I'm like, when am I ever going to put it in the 1940s version and watch the Pride and Prejudice without having to do it for a project? Would I ever choose to do that on my own? Is that how we're rating it? Because if so, it's going to get a darn low score, because I would never choose. I guess we're rating it depending on like how much.
Yeah, I guess that's also my question is, how are we rating this? Are we like, rating this just as its own independent movie?
As its own independent movie?
Well, as a movie, let me go through the questions here. Max has got 3. I'm only going to use 2 of them really, because one's just redundant. Having heard the book, how would you rate the movie out of 10? And As a movie, and as impartial as you can be, how would you rate it out of 10 as if you had never read the book? So the first is how is it is an adaptation, and then how is it as if you had never read the book?
An adaptation's a 6, maybe a 5.
Okay.
I'd say probably 5 as an adaptation.
I think I agree.
And then as like if I had never read the book, I do like this movie better than I liked reading the book. I'm just gonna be real.
Okay.
What?
I didn't like the book that much. I like the movies better. However, I did like the book. I just don't like reading through lots of letters, and if you don't like reading through lots of letters, Pride and Prejudice is the book.
Yeah, it does get a little epistolary there.
It's a lot of letter heavy. It's a lot of dear. I'm reading the letters.
Do not read Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I know. So
stay away from that.
That's the only thing I don't think, but that's just my own personal bias. It has nothing to do with Jane Austen's. First of all, we never even, can I please say, we need to at least discuss the fact that since this is the first time we're talking about Pride and Prejudice as any sort of adaptation, this book has, I think, what is some widely considered the best opening line to a novel in all of literature period since the beginning of time. Like,
it's easily one of the most famous.
It's easily one of a lot of people consider it like as one of the best openings. However, one of the writers that may trump it compared to who you're asking and like the age and like gender of the people being quizzed is Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. And the Gunslinger Followed or whatever, like that one like but Pride and Prejudice may win it out depending on who you're pulling.
Call Me Ishmael.
Yeah, that too. Moby Dick. Yes,
yeah, it was the worst. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah, it's up there about a man seeking marriage and happiness, and for opening for this one. And then anyway, I think it should at least be mentioned. So I'm gonna put that there, and then I'm gonna go back to it.
It is very much a classic.
So as if I had never read the book, probably a 7. I'm gonna say a 7.
Oh wow!
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
A lot higher than what you gave it as an adaptation. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I like the film.
I'm gonna say for me, as an adaptation, I'm gonna have to go with you there. Maybe a little bit higher. I might go 6, as high as a 6 on adaptation. I did point out some significant chunk of stuff that was removed from the story, that I think is necessary, but that's why it's like 3 points. And then the rest are just little changes is the other point off. So I'll give it a 6 on adaptation. But as a movie, even with my bias against black and white films that I've had in recent years, because I have morbid thoughts about like movies like this, because I realize not a single living person or creature that we saw in this movie is alive today.
I think of that too.
And that bums me out when I watch movies and I think about how long ago this movie was. 84 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, yeah. And so that kind of bums me out, and it makes my enjoyment of movies that are black and white, at least filmed during the black and white era, a little bit less than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
That's my own hang up, I admit. But I'm going to give it, as an adaptation, or as a movie on its own, I'll probably give it a 6.5, just a little bit better than I would as an adaptation.
Yeah.
So, but that's my own morbid thought process going on there. So,
yeah, I think the same thing.
It's not just me.
No, it's not. It
is very sad. It is very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I'm glad we watched it because we're appreciating the art that they made in those days, and it's still relevant.
Yeah,
even though the costumes were not relevant, the movie was relevant.
Yeah, it still is. What would you? Did you give numbers?
I did not. So I agree with Ashton Crow. I see dead people. Literally. I agree with the adaptation of being a 5. I do, and I think they made a significant amount of changes from the books but they were able to communicate the core story. So like knowing that it's adaptation of an adaptation, and then also just the limitations of the industry at the time is the only reason I wouldn't put it lower. So like understanding all of that, if not like if they had done this today, it would have been like a 1 or 2. But I'm giving a lot of grace based off of, because they did make a fair amount of changes. They kept to the core of the story, so it was not a 0. Yeah. But
true.
But also understanding the limitations is why it's a 5. So for
a few weeks.
Yeah. For the movie, and it like the entertainment value is that like it was a very like laugh, like all the supporting characters are amazing, and it does very much flow with like it was made to entertain people, so it wasn't made to be an accurate adaptation of the time period or the book. So it was very entertaining to watch. I did laugh out loud several times, and like sometimes in these movies when the Americans are attempting to do British accents, not that I'm a savant on accents, but like, accents didn't kill me. So yeah, so especially for the times that it was made in, I think it was a really well produced movie. So I think I'd give it like a 7.5. We can do halves, right? 7.5 or
7.8 if you want.
I'll give it a 7.7. So it's not like
I call the line at 0.75. When you go to 2 decimal places, then I start calling the line. It's coming out. No,
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So again, like I was
it's secretly
the
really just a percentile.
The costumes it would have been higher if it was not for the costumes.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, no, I'm making it 7.2 because of the costumes. Fuck the costumes.
Exactly. Yeah, the costumes are just atrocious.
Horrible.
They were terrible. Terrible. Yeah, like, and they're just some things I cannot forget. Like, I can give a lot of grace for production value. I can give a lot of grace for not following the script or the book. I can get like acting, but like
I've got a mini series for you to watch.
They went so far out on the costume, like just completely ignored anything remote. They weren't even on the right continent. Like those were antebellum, deep South costume. The English never had costumes like that. So like,
it was very much,
it drove me crazy. It drove me out. I had to stop and walk away because it made me mad.
Well, I think that's a wrap for tonight. Leigh-A, thank you for joining us for this 7 weeks. I think you're here for most of the episodes. You might have 1 or 2 off.
I think it'll be more of a week by week. Like I think I've signed up for all of them, but if you guys have like, but I'm still gonna watch everything and I'll still be in chat even if I'm not on the screen.
So awesome. Jen, thank you for supporting the idea of doing this. I tossed it out there a long time ago, and you and Rebecca both latched onto it.
Yes.
And so I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we're not doing just science fiction and fantasy on this channel. That's where most of our viewers come from. But, I think it's worth reaching out to other genres of fiction and, film. So
well,
thank you guys at home and in chat for watching.
Readers aren't only science fiction fantasy readers. Like they read other things.
Right.
So
wait, we're allowed to read other. I didn't know we were allowed to read outside.
Are allowed to read other. Yes, you are.
I have to do that then. I might.
You have to get a permission slip, but you can.
Permission slip.
Mistress will write you a permission slip if you need a permission slip.
Okay. I'll see you in a little bit about that. So thank you guys at home for watching. Thank you in chat for joining and watching and taking part. We will see you next week as we discuss the first two episodes of the 1995 BBC version of the movie or the book, starring Jennifer L. and Colin Firth.
That dude.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.
Bye.